Welcome back to the Faculty Factory podcast. I'm Kim Skorupski here at Hopkins, looking at my friend, Dr. Carol Ziminski. Hi, Carol.
Morning, Kim.
Thank you so much for being here, Carol. I love you for many reasons, one of which is the last three letters of your name. Ziminski, S-K-I, Skorupski, S-K-I. I think we are very few of us here at Hopkins who are skis. I know Joe Mankowski, he's the director of comparative molecular pathobiology, and I always call him Joe Ski. And we talk about pierogies whenever we see each other. And then there's Solkowski,
Right?
but I don't know of many other skis. So whenever I see another ski, I get very excited. I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania, where you just couldn't turn around without running into a ski. So Dr. Carol Ziminski, she is a retired associate professor of medicine. So she's emerita, specialist in rheumatology. So she's a rheumatologist. She was the director of the rheumatic disease unit. Carol also ran the student education program, the clinical skills course, and she has the distinction of being the first female assistant chief of service, ACS, in medicine here at Johns Hopkins. And recently, she is the co-chair of the Academy at Johns Hopkins. And Dr. Ziminski will tell you what is the Academy. She co-chairs that with the inaugural chair, Dr. Bill Baumgartner. We all love him as well. He was our vice dean of clinical affairs, I think it was. Yes, he's wonderful. So,
Cardiac surgeon.
yes. So Carol and I know each other for several years now, and she's so nice to come here and talk with us about the Academy and about her personal journey as she thought about and prepared to leave full-time employment. So thank you so much for being here, Carol. Really appreciate you. Why don't you tell us about the Academy?
Well, thank you again, Kim. It's wonderful to be here with you. And thank you for thinking of me for this to be part of this podcast series. The Academy is actually a wonderful organization that is at Hopkins still fairly in its infancy. We're in about our fifth year. Cindy Rand, we refer to as the godmother of the Academy. She was one of the people very actively involved in looking at senior faculty at Hopkins, of which there were many, and wondering about what they might do as they approached the twilight of their careers, and recognizing that there was a wealth not only of institutional knowledge, but of medical knowledge as well, wondering whether there was not some way to preserve all of that wonderful knowledge and the wonderful people with all of that knowledge. And hence, over numerous discussions and organizational planning meetings, the Academy at Johns Hopkins, East Baltimore campus, was born. The idea of it is really to recognize that retired faculty from the three East Baltimore schools, so the School of Medicine, the School of Nursing, and the School of Public Health, have exceptional wisdom and experience. And this organization, a group, allows them to get together and to share their wisdom. The East Baltimore Academy is also very actively involved in the local community. There are numerous projects and activities and committees within the Academy. We just are wrapping up our annual report for 2023 activities, and Academy volunteers have contributed 9,000 hours of service to the university and to various programs around the community, Henderson Hopkins School, Baltimore Symphony, etc. So that's I think it's over 9,000 hours that the university would have otherwise had to find some way to pay for. And it's a wonderful, wonderful group of people. We meet monthly. I've met people and gotten to know them who I really never would have met otherwise across all divisions, not only schools, but all divisions within the School of Medicine. That we do hikes, we do talks. We had a trip to Liriodendron. There was a trip to another Jerusalem Mill. It's not only an academic place, but it's also a place to socialize and gather with people. And we have a wonderful space in the Welsh Library,
Don't we?
which is uh, a wonderful building, nice space, and it's
Mm.
ours.
It's beautiful. Folks should Google the Academy at Johns Hopkins, and you'll see the pictures. It's really fabulous. I mean, I remember when that redesign and that what do you call it? I guess the renovation of the
Mhm.
building. It's a beautiful two sitting areas and private office space and locker rooms and a nice kitchen with a
Mhm.
wine cooler and the espresso machine. And it is just so inviting. The colors are so wonderful. It really is. I remember when we had the ribbon cutting ceremony and people were just oohing and awing and saying, "This is Hopkins? Oh my gosh, who knew we had such taste?" It was really extraordinary space.
And it is space, which is a premium at Hopkins. It definitely is. It definitely is. But it's at our at our monthly meetings, we always have food, so it's sort of an enticement. We clearly during COVID, we were all Zooming. We learned how to Zoom only. Since January of 23, when restrictions were lifted, we've been hybrid. But we really encourage people to come and to interact in person and in our wonderful space, and it's really lovely. We also, this is actually appropriate for this group as well. This year, actually late last year, Bill Baumgartner and I started what we call Nuts and Bolts of Retirement series. So it's beyond our regular meetings. We bring in outside speakers usually to talk about some aspects of retirement that people might not have thought about since before the academy and now the senior faculty transitions program at Hopkins. When you retired, you were on your own, basically, to figure everything out. So we've had a series of talks on Medicare and different types of insurance. That we had a talk on Hopkins specific types of insurance. We had a financial planner come in. We have had a lawyer to talk about estate planning. We have future programs are planned around transitions in how you're living. Are we in a house? Are we in a townhouse? Are we in a condo? Are we downsizing? Are we moving out of state or cross country to be with? So how we're living and then where we're living. So those are a couple of the topics that are upcoming, and those are geared not only for current Academy members, but also for people who are thinking about retirement. So invitations and announcement about those meetings really go out to all faculty in all schools and also at Homewood above the age of 50, 55. I forget actually, 55. Anyway, but so it's something to just to put in the back of their minds as people approach that stage.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. For those of us listening who around the world who have leadership positions in faculty affairs, faculty development, the Academy not only is a place to, as Carol Ziminski is saying, build community, network, keep people engaged in their communities and certainly active and serving in their communities, but it's also a place for continued intellectual productivity. Thinking of Jan Serwent and Dave Kern, who do mentoring and coaching and advising and helping early career or other faculty members who want help writing manuscripts or grants or honing clinical practice skills. So there's, as you said, lots of ample opportunity. And so I think the Academy, something like that at any institution, it's not that difficult to put together because there's the will. People want to maintain some participation. And that's so much a part of our identities that we want to continue to give and to be active and vital. So I think an academy or something like this is so, so important. And I like how you mentioned, it's just basically up to the members what they want to do. And so you've scheduled all this wonderful content and speakers for soon to be retirees or people who are newly retired or well along the retirement journey. And then in our Office of Faculty, as you know, Carol, Cindy Rand, Jennifer Haythornthwaite, and myself, we developed this 3-part series called The Next Chapter. And I know you've been a guest at many of those sessions where we explore with faculty members age 50 and older who are beginning to, noodle around. What would this look like? We talk about purpose, identity, finding your community. So that's a really nice 3-part series. We usually do it in the fall, in the spring. As you know, Carol, you've been on again, I guess, at our retirement panel presentation where we invite newly retired faculty members from diverse areas and schools to come and share their experiences about retirement and nuggets and lessons learned. And that's always a really popular event as well. So it's easy. It's not that big of a lift if you're a leader, to create this programming to help even out the balance of, we spend so much effort on early career faculty members and getting promoted. And there's kind of historically been this gap of, like you said earlier, Carol, you just let them fend for themselves and figure it out and think, well, they know what they're doing. They can figure it out. So these kind of programs are not terrifically expensive. And I think, you're giving us wonderful examples of how they can grow and self-sustain.
Mm-hmm. And around the country, I know there are different alumni organizations in various forms. Some are very active in travel organizing, but we had actually one recent session was about travel tips. We're not the organizers of tours, for instance, but we can connect people who want to do that with the Hopkins Travel Office or whoever.
So, Carol, how did you, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your decision to step back from being full-time rheumatologist, doing all the clinical education stuff, doing this clinical skills course, all the student stuff? How can you help us understand what decision points you came upon and how that process played out for you?
Sure, Kim, I will give it a try. I should say at the outset, that was probably one of the hardest decisions I ever had to come to step back from full-time practice. It was a decision that I had spoken with my division director for a while about. In my division, in rheumatology at Hopkins, nobody had ever retired before I did. At the end of 2014, people either died or they went elsewhere.
Huh.
So I was the first one to take the plunge into this. My decision to step back from full-time practice and to stop my own patient practice occurred in the setting of some administrative changes within my division. During the entirety of my career, my clinical practice had been based at an affiliated hospital of Johns Hopkins, the Good Samaritan Hospital, which was affiliated, but it was basically a community hospital. Mm-hmm. A decision was made to close that office and that practice and to potentially move all of us who saw patients at that clinical site over to a different clinical site at the Bayview campus, another Hopkins campus. Yeah. The Good Sam site was where the inpatient rheumatic disease unit had been in its heyday. That had since closed with changes to outpatient medicine. It had been the site of the Rheumatology Fellows Clinic for years. It was still a very active consulting site and training site for residents in the outpatient setting. But the decision was made to close that office. In that setting, it seemed like a reasonable time for me to stop seeing my own patients rather than transferring my whole clinical operation to a new site, recognizing that my reestablished site was in its sunset phases, if you will. I stopped seeing my own patients at the end of December of 2014. Time flies. A letter was sent out to my patients announcing this decision at the same time that the office closing at Good Sam was announced.
Mm.
I had hoped that my letter might go out in advance of that, but that didn't happen for a variety of reasons. It was very hard for me to stop seeing my own patients. And I think for those of us in clinical medicine, seeing patients is so much of who we are and what we do. The question becomes, who am I when I'm not doing this anymore? And one of your next step topics is
I
sort of
did.
identifying, who am I when I'm not Dr. Ziminski all day long with,
Right.
can I take this? Can I do this? What am I going to do about this arthritis or that lupus or
Mm.
what problem? That was very, very hard. I loved my patients. Some of them I had seen for years and years. We've been to weddings and bat mitzvahs and
Mm.
funerals, and
Mm.
it was very hard. But it was the right thing to do at that time. And I think whenever that situation happens for people, when that decision is made, you kind of know when it's the right time. It's not the right time for everybody at the same time, but you kind of know when it's okay to make that change. I still would occasionally see some of my patients when I was precepting fellows clinic. One of the nice parts about my decision, and since we were creating this pathway within the division, was that at least for me, retirement was not one step and I was done and I was off to the South Pacific doing nothing. I actually stayed on the part-time faculty until just a year ago. So I phased down my practice. I could add that even before my decision to step away fully from clinical practice, I had cut back my time. So I was not 100% anymore. I had stopped doing inpatient consults, for instance, at the Hopkins site. I cut back one clinic session a week, so half a day a week, and cut back a little bit. And then when I stopped the rest of my patients, we negotiated and planned with my division director that I would cut back to 30%, which in my situation meant that I was not doing any direct patient care of my own, but I was still very actively involved with what at Hopkins is called the College's Advisory Program, which is a student program or program for students in which faculty members serve as advisors and teachers during the entirety of a student's medical school experience.
Oh,
I was part of that program from 2008 until 2022.
oh my gosh. I've never even heard of that program.
So the college's advisory program is kind of akin to the firm program in medicine at Hopkins, which some of your listeners may or may not be aware of. But at any rate, for the medical students, they're divided into four colleges named after four giants of Hopkins medicine. Once they're accepted, and sometime in the summer, they're divided randomly among these four colleges. They are assigned to a core faculty advisor, of which there are 24. I was one of those core faculty advisors. Each faculty person has 5 medical students who are theirs. We are the ones responsible for basically teaching them how to be a doctor. So what used to be called clinical skills became clinical foundations of medicine. We would meet with the students weekly from August through December to teach them clinical skills, how to interview, how to talk to a patient, how to deliver bad news, how to cover sensitive topics, how to do a physical exam. After those initial very intensive months, we would meet with them intermittently during parts of um, other kind of academic sessions over the course of their years. So they really were your advisors all the way through medical school. If they stepped out for an MPH or PhD and then came back, they would come back to you.
Wow.
They, we had them to dinner at our house with home cooked food and china and silverware, and it was wonderful. You really get to know them, and they really are. They're your advisees all the way through medical school. A few years ago, the powers that be decided that the core faculty would actually hood their students at commencement, which is absolutely fantastic.
Of course.
It's a wonderful moment, and you get to really to be with the students at the culmination of their medical
Oh
careers.
my gosh, I cannot believe, well, that I don't know. I don't interact with medical school, but that what a lovely tradition. And of course, I can't help it. I'm thinking of Hogwarts,
Right,
that the
right.
Harry Potter that they get randomly selected. Is there a hat that, gosh, I mean, what a wonderful experience to have such a close connection
Oh,
with faculty members. I can't, I've never heard of this. I feel so dumb, but what a beautiful, what a beautiful experience. And you're making me think, and I can't help it, but go back to this thing that's been gnawing away at me forever is precision faculty development. And that's like precision medicine, precision education, precision faculty development. Like, wow, wouldn't that be, and I know scale is ridiculous to scale it up, but wouldn't that be lovely to have the same thing with faculty members? Hey, you're an assistant professor, you're an instructor, you're a research associate, whatever your clinic, their faculty designation is at your university, but welcome to academic medicine. I'm going to be your, advisor, your coach, your mentor, your one of your. I'm on your team through till you decide that it's over, till you get promoted to associate professor, and then maybe you I mean, we have mentors, but an official designation like that, I think, would really strengthen the bonds with making people feel learning like the subtext, things that you don't learn about at orientation or that aren't in the policies and procedures, like how you really navigate and the secret passageways and feeling like you're really part of something special versus like, all right, you're here, figure it out on your own. Good luck.
Oh, it is a fantastic program, and which is one of the reasons I stuck with it for so long. And it really provides the students with a safe place.
Yeah.
All discussions between student and faculty advisor are confidential unless it's deemed that for a variety of required reporting reasons you need to say something. But the students benefit from the program.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that really I think attracts students when they're deciding where they want to be at medical school. It is one of the really strong points about the medical school. None of the faculty, none of the advisors as advisors are involved in any grading of the students. For instance, even during their final exams, when they're observed for history and physical, they are observed by somebody who is not their advisor.
That makes
So
it
it
even
all remains really
always.
objective.
Yeah.
And we all recognize that one mentor is probably not enough. You need a different variety of mentors and coaches at all stages. So they have the CAP faculty advisor as their kind of primary advisor, but they have other advisors for their scholarly concentrations, for instance, or for deciding about what programs they want to apply to, or they're sort of subspecialty advisors who are all much more involved in the past several years in helping them negotiate the residency application process, speaking about things that are nuts and bolts and nooks and crannies of a very confusing process. But we really help them through all of that, which is, it's terrific. It's a terrific program. So I was very involved in that. My next to the last group of students just graduated. And the last class, which I had for their first year of medical school, will graduate in 25. So that was kind of 20% of my time. That's the core faculty commitment. And then for 10%, my division director and I negotiated 10%. I would precept the rheumatology fellows clinic once a week for 8 to 10 times 6 months. So I still had my fingers in the pot, was teaching and was precepting the rheumatology fellows, which was also great fun. and just a wonderful experience. And in that setting, I saw some of my former patients who were then being seen by the fellows. So that was kind of fun.
So you're giving us an example of how we can help craft our own journey that you figured out in concert, certainly with your division director and others, what would work for them and what would work for you. As you said, there's no one best route. There's no cutting an abrupt start and stop, that we can all make up our own kind of meander here, try this, try that, dabble here, dabble that. It doesn't have to be, and I'm sure for some people they want the abrupt kind of like rip the Band-Aid off and peace out and kind of take off. But you're giving us an example of how the possibilities are endless of how we can craft a kind of slow rollout of our efforts and how we choose to spend our time doing the things we love or things that interest us or where there's need in the community or need in the department. So I like how you were able to kind of build that for yourself. It sounds like you were really fortunate and had a good division director who worked with you. I imagine there's some who don't have maybe that kind of I don't know, creativity, or don't have the budget, or don't have the capacity to think like that. So that's it's a great ideas that you're sharing with us of possibilities.
I think that's true, and it will vary for everybody.
Yeah.
I probably could have gone on with the colleges if no one was forcing me out of that, or precepting. The colleges was a lot of work, and very intense work, and very time committed work, especially August through December, which was impacting how much time I had to do other things that I liked, like spend some time on Eastern Long Island, or spend some time traveling with my husband, or whatever. And it just became the right time to do that. Same thing with precepting the fellows clinic. I was fortunate in that when we were arranging schedules for when I would precept, I could pick the weeks that I wanted to do it. So I could do a lot very close together. So then I could have another chunk of time where I could do other things. But that also became more than I wanted to deal with at the time. And I remember the last clinic session when I was precepting, one of our young faculty said, "Dr. Ziminski, what do you mean you're not going to be doing this anymore for us?" And I said, "John, I've been retiring for 8.5 years. I think it's time to change. To say, this is enough for now."
You said something earlier, and I'm not sure if you can answer it, but you said you'll know when you know, or like you said something like you'll know it. But I'm wondering, sometimes we think we know something and then we don't know something. Were there any, you just now said, trying to retire for 8 years. So can you think of people who are listening to this right now going, will I know? Well, how do I know? What if I make a mistake? Or can you remember any fits and starts where you're like, okay, this is the morning. I'm waking up. I'm convicted, honey. This is the day. Today I know it. And then midday you were like, no, I don't know that anymore. No, I'm not sure. Where does the waffling, and how do you really know? Or how don't you know? If you can't answer the how do you know, when is it clear that you don't really know? I don't know if I'm being clear, but I'm trying to help people figure out, like, because the people are scared. As you said, our whole identity is this. So it's hard to walk away from things you love. How do you know? For real, how do you know?
I'm not sure that I could say that you absolutely know until you've done it. I don't know that I think anything is irreversible either. I remember once we had made the decision that I would stop seeing patients. I remember multiple days thinking, no, I really can't do this. What else am I going to do? Who else am I going to be if this isn't it? I suppose maybe that I didn't step completely away, except for my patients, but that I did keep the students and the fellows activities made it a little bit easier because I still was doing something, which for me was the right thing to do. I think it was very hard, as I said, to stop seeing my own patients. I'm not sure how I would have felt if I gave up everything at the same time.
Okay. Okay.
I think I would have felt not good.
That's
But
an important distinction. Not everything at once, just slowly tapering.
but for some people in some situations, stopping everything might be the right thing to do. For instance, I, if I were a bench researcher,
Mm.
maybe I would have to step away completely, or maybe I would step away from most of my grants and keep a little bit. I
Mm.
can recall some of our Academy members who did that. They stepped away from most, but kept a little finger in doing a couple things. If I think of most of our Academy members and people I know who've retired, they really haven't stopped everything, which is partly why the Academy is such a vibrant place because people are still involved in a variety of activities, including academic activities.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does because again, it just emphasizes that it's such a unique, personalized experience. And don't be afraid to experiment,
Mhm.
to take a sabbatical, to try, front loading or back loading your schedule to see what does that feel like if I step away from something? What would that feel like if I just try to live in that condo for 2 weeks or go visit somebody who is you know, far away and doing something different. How could I live like that? Could I do that? Could I? And I like how you say, nothing's irreversible, that having a conversation with your leader saying, I'm kind of on the fence here. I want to try something out. Is there some way I can test these waters and help people think, get a coach, have somebody help you think about, well, what might this look like if over the next period or quarter or semester or weeks or whatever, I try not checking my emails every day
Mhm.
or checking or not opening up the computer 15 times a day or testing the waters to see how does that feel to get on my bike again. I loved riding a bike as a kid. I haven't had a bike in 40 years. How does that feel? So I think you're setting a good example of there's no one right way to do it. And yeah, what's to be afraid? You try it. And then if it doesn't work out, you know what? I didn't really care for that. I guess I'm not ready.
Huh. But one of the things I would always tell my students is that what you're doing, medicine should be fun. You'll have your headaches, you'll have your screaming moments, you'll have a variety of stressful times. But overall, it should be fun. And you're not having fun with what you're doing, then there's something wrong. And you need to step back and reevaluate. And I think that's also part of what you're approaching. Is this the next phase of my career? Am I having fun? Do I think I'd be happier doing something a little bit different? And I think it's okay to explore that.
Dr. Carol Ziminski, you are lovely. You're so wonderful. I love chatting with you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience co-directing the Academy at Hopkins, co-chairing it. And thank you for sharing your personal story. I really appreciate you. And I'm going to leave you with the parting thoughts to our international faculty factory community.
Thank you, Kim. I've enjoyed chatting with you as well. I always do. I'm always surprised how wonderfully well and flowing our conversations go. You challenge me to think differently about how I've moved through career as well, which is also a wonderful challenge to face. For all of your international listeners, I would just say, enjoy what you are doing now. Look forward to changes in the future and the excitement that those changes can also bring. And just relish and value who you are, what you have done, and embrace what you may become as the days and the years go forward. And enjoy.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Kim.
Hey everyone, it's your podcast producer Casey Callahan with your monthly Faculty Factory podcast update. Please make sure to download our free newest Faculty Factory book called The Academic Medicine Starter Kit, Timeless Tips and Guidance for Early Career Faculty Members. It is free and right now available to download on the facultyfactory.org website. Visit facultyfactory.org to find it, and you can see a link there to the Amazon version as well if you want the print version. In addition, I wanted to let you know that as of August 2024, this podcast you're listening to has more than 88,000 total downloads and more than 13,000 total YouTube views. The Faculty Factory website has drawn more than 48,000 web visitors from users in 122 different countries. We want you to be a guest on our show, so please reach out via the Faculty Factory website and send us a message there.
Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. The mission of the Faculty Factory is to build and support a community of leaders in faculty development who share tools, resources, wisdom, and encouragement in service to our faculty members, schools, and institutions. We encourage you to go to facultyfactory.org to find out more. Get in touch with me, ask me any questions. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. We'll see you next time. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine Office of Faculty. For more information, visit facultyfactory.org.